It's in order. Okay. God, it's in order now. Okay. All right. Yes. So, yeah, so the whole idea is about energy, maximizing your energy, how to supercharge, and so on. So, Rachelle, please share with us a little bit about your background, where you're coming from, and how you even got into the space of energy focus.
So thank you again for having me. My name is Rachelle Sylvain. I am a Haitian American living in South Florida currently. I am a mother of two. I am married. I am a wife. As I said, a mother, a daughter, granddaughter, sister, friend, you name it, all the title. And I have a mentorship program that I offer. So therefore, I am a mentor to young girls specifically. I do a lot of coaching. I am a motivational speaker. I am overall a master igniter. This is who I am. I'm here to serve, really to influence people through inspiration, motivation, and uplift anyone to get to the space where they can really tap into that inner flame within them so that they can live the life they were destined to live.
So, Rachelle, define for us what it means to be a master igniter. What is that? What does that mean?
What does that mean? It's interesting that you're saying that. So the way the term came about is because many of my clients define my work with them as such. They feel, most of the clients that I've had, that I have the capacity to really light up that flame that resides within them and give them the generate the energy within themselves so that they can fully show up for themselves in their truth and as authentic as they can. So I have the ability through my speaking and through my work to energize you from within, light you up so that you don't sit back on your potential, but you fully stand strong and forward in all your ability.
So,
So
where
if
do
you don't
you
feel
get?
motivated,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I said if you don't feel motivated, I will certainly light you up to get to that space of motivation.
Okay, excellent. So, where does your energy come from?
My energy comes from the process in which that I was able to go through self-discovery. My energy is me connecting with myself from within, getting to know my truth, understanding every element of who I am, the vibration that's being generated within me at any given time, the positive and the negative, the sounds within, and understanding what each of them means at any given time, and process them in a way that makes me understand who I truly am, why I do what I do, and why I show up the way I show up, and give me the confidence that I need to continuously show up with my best foot forward and my full authenticity, and
So,
embrace my imperfections as well.
so why is it that people have difficulty doing that? What is it? What are the obstacles why we don't do that naturally, or why is it such a challenge for people to be able to tap into all the things you just mentioned?
There's a lot of different components. It can be generational. It could be past historical traumas that we as a group of people have experienced, the way in which we were socialized, the way we were raised, the way in which our community impacted us, or it could be our ethnicity as it relates to our backgrounds, historical background. That's what I'm referring to. And that can play a role in the way in which we choose to move through life and not taking the time and not understanding the importance of taking the time to get to know who we are, understanding what makes us who we are, all the elements that played a role into making us who we are at the moment, but that with gaining the clarity that there's still space for change to unlearn a lot of different things that we had learned so that we can break free from some of the beliefs we have and embrace what's within ourselves.
Well, that's a very beautiful path and a very beautiful journey for someone to go on, that whole self-discovery. So give us a little bit more about your background. I know you're originally from Haiti and you've had, obviously many different experiences growing up there. How did your experience there kind of transition you into where you are now?
So yes, I am originally from Haiti. I grew up in Haiti. I have no complaints in terms of the life that was provided for me. However, I did experience lot of political turmoil in Haiti, and also where in which my home was invaded. So these elements that played a role in who I am today, or things that I had, these are stepping stones that I had to go through, and that's as a young child. But yet, no point these things affect me to the extent that I didn't know how to pursue life. I've also had the experience where your parents are continuously encourage you to go a certain path, career path, and when you're clearly aware that this is not what you're about. Most Caribbean cultures, and I'm sure there's a lot of other cultures out there too, you are from a young age, there are specific brackets you have to follow. You have to be a doctor, you have to be an attorney, you got to be accountant, and so and a nurse, and all these other things. These are like the prestigious, quote unquote, professions that you have to pursue. Yet I always knew at a young age that I was not that person. So I always wanted to become a psychologist. Psychologists and that really strongly interest me. And if I can remember in high school, having discussion and conversation with friends when I knew that's the path, because the role that I've always played in my relationships as a whole was always that listener, the person who helps people process things, really help people go through whatever they're going through, to help them to overcome whatever that's impacting them at the moment. So that has always been something that I was connected to. I wanted to become a psychologist. However, when I presented it to my parents, it was like, there's no money there, that shouldn't really be the path, you should go try to do something else. So that was my first experience culturally and generational, right? That's what we call generational things that happened. So I did follow suit. I went in with in college with the mindset. My major at the time was economics, totally opposite of what I wanted to do. But I pursued what was encouraged, and as I was guided. And the more I did it, the more I realized I was not connected to what I was learning. And luckily for me, the core curriculums that I had taken in school allowed me to get exposed to other teachings, such as sociology, psychology, philosophy, and even religious studies, all these components. And I'm like, wow, I find I was more fascinated with it, with more and more I did it. And I also was working while going to school, so I got exposed to psychologists and social workers and psychiatrists. So I'm like, oh my God, this is really, really, really what I was connecting with. So there was a particular social work, and one of the jobs that I worked at, I didn't know what social work was about. So I started asking questions. I took interest in the profession. And at that moment, I switched my major. The school did have a major in social work. I switched it because I realized I was not necessarily connecting with the biological component, but I was more interested in the environmental component that affected people. And this is what social work was about. So I pursued that, and I used this person who became my mentor, and it was Judy. And I pursued it. So, and then I did all the pieces, switched my major, and then I informed my parents, oh, by the way, I'm no longer pursuing this, but I'm doing that. But I was able to make a case for myself. So it was extremely supportive, and it pays to have a supportive group of people around you that understands. And in my family, as long as you were able to make a clear plan and make a case, it was supported. And that was very clear. And I was able to change my major to that. And I ended up getting my master's in social work, and I pursued that. Moving forward, I've done several work in the medical field, mental health and behavioral health specifically. I realized I was still connected. There was a greater purpose to me. I ended up pursuing, and actually not so much pursuing, but founding a non-for-profit, been in existence for the needy children of Haiti through.
Rachelle, excuse me, your voice dropped out a moment when you were saying that. So could you repeat what's the name of your nonprofit? It just dropped.
My nonprofit is called Timoun Lakai. It's Creole, Haitian Creole for kids back home. And what we do is we support grassroots organization locally in Haiti that has a mission, child welfare as their mission. So we provide them with the resources they need to do the work, and we support them on the areas of food distribution, academics, we pay for their tuition, as well as leadership programs. So if any of these grassroots organizations have that component as part of their mission, we support them with the resources to continue to do the work they do. So it was still a passion of mine to give back, to be of support, to be of support of others, still following the same path that I had gotten into. Moving forward, I realized that I was getting more and more passionate about speaking. So the more I was able to get into the platform to talk about my charity, or when I was going to Haiti and speak to the students and speak to the staffs and speak to the parents and speak to the community at large, something was fueling me within and made me realize how passionate I was about really pouring into others so that they could really get the inspiration they need to be able to be the best version of themselves. The more I did that, the more I had fundraisers and I was speaking about my cause, it was like someone else was being birthed within me. And my energy was fueling everything I was saying. And as you can see right now, I'm talking about it, my passion is coming through as well.
Yes, it is. It is.
I'm feeling it too. So that's what it was. And the more I connect, I was like, this is really what I'm about. To be able to pour into others, that moment made me realize that. So I had a day a couple of years after where I was sitting on my couch and I'm like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Meanwhile, I was already a social worker. I already had 2 kids. I had the house. I had the husband. I had the this. I had the that. I had a not-for-profit. Still finding myself sitting and asking myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? And it came to the conclusion that one thing I was clear is that my role has never changed. I was still the person I was being called upon to in my personal life, friends, community, family, to help process, help them through a challenge of some sort. I was still that person that did it within my social work field, still doing it within the non-for-profit. And I realized that, wow, my purpose in this life is to impact lives, because I was still impacting lives through every stages that I brought forward, that I'm speaking on. Mm-hmm. What's the difference is that I use different platforms to do that. And the platform that resonated the most with me, that brought me the most fulfillment, is the speaking. It's the speaking. So I decided to pursue a certificate of some sort so that I could get into the speaking world. And this is how I stumbled upon the coaching profession, because I didn't know about it at the time. And the more I read about coaching, the more I connected with it, because I enjoyed the fact that coaching brought you from a space of functionality to your ultimate space, as opposed to counseling was really taking someone from a space of dysfunctional to a place of functionality. I connected more with an individual who had a drive, who wanted to, but they didn't have the know-how, but yet they have a desire, something that's really telling them there's more to this, to whatever they're doing. So, and that's kind of how I pursued it. I did all that. While I was doing that, I had to take a step back from the business of the coaching business, because I ended up getting into entrepreneurship with my husband. He had this amazing idea of getting involved in acquiring or starting an urgent care clinic. We were able to find one that was already pre-existing. We did due diligence. We did everything we had to do, and we purchased the clinic, got involved. I knew at the time I had to put that piece of my coaching somewhat on the side so that I could help and making sure that, as we're a team, right? We're a team to support and making it what it needed to be. It became my baby. It became something that I never intended it to be. However, the amount of time, the amount of energy, the amount of work, the mindset shift, the right, being able to really connect with the staff, and realizing with any business, those that fit remain, who did not fit, left. Yet the right team was put together, and everybody had the buy-in. It became as much theirs as it was ours. And the energy shifting that we were able to work with leadership, we were able to do leadership and energy shifting work and mindset shift work within the clinic. So it was really an amazing, phenomenal experience. However, what was supposed to bring us joy, what was supposed to bring us a separate stream of income, was depleting us. As much as it was wonderful, it was great, it was everything, it was not bringing in what it said it was supposed to bring in. We changed building system. We did everything we could. We got counsel. We did whatever we were supposed to do to ensure that we would still be able to run this machine the way in which it could have been ran, and it was just not coming together. So at some point, my husband and I, we had to come to terms in realizing that a decision had to be made.
Oh, I think it's a little frozen.
If we did make to come to terms that we had to close down the clinic and accept the loss that came with that. So we experienced a major financial blow.
Okay, so Rachelle, just to recap a little bit, because I think your screen was frozen, or mine, whatever, somewhere on Zoom it froze up a little bit. But you were saying that you came to the realization that you had to kind of get out of that business because it was depleting your energies and it didn't work out the way you expected. So how were you able to kind of backtrack out of that and then regroup to then launch forward again?
So it was not only depleting energy, also depleting us financially.
Yeah.
And we took to terms and realized that we had to cut a loss, a major financial setback, and it was still working our way through it. It was definitely an experience that I didn't anticipate, but yet it was there. How it helped me in this process was, had I not been the person I was at the time when I started this whole clinic, I wouldn't have been able to overcome it the way in which we were able to overcome it. If I had not done the work with me, had I not gotten to the space where I knew who I was, I wouldn't have been able to embrace the challenge the way in which that I was able to embrace it. And I say embrace because at that moment I knew, as I was going through it, it was like success does not come without challenges. So if this is the challenge I'm being given to me, bring it. Because that will be the setback. Failures will come with success. If this is the failure I'm supposed to experience, and my mind was open to receive that challenge, as detrimental as it was to us financially and as a family. Because I know that there was greatness beyond that. So at no point did I ask myself, why me? I was continuously asking, why not me? It helped me to understand the depth of my groundedness in my spirituality. Because I always was connected spiritually. I didn't realize how grounded I was. It made me understand my mindset. I never shifted. I was always focused and understanding that it was a challenge that I don't necessarily, would have liked, but it is what it is. I will learn through it. I will grow through it, but I will get past it because the version of me that's going to come through that will be unstoppable. And that's the way in which that I was. But had I not done the work in understanding every aspect of me, all the element that comes with the feelings, the sensation, the vibration, everything that comes through me, if I didn't understand it, I wouldn't have been able to fully stand and face what I had to face. In which I faced it. So at no point did I ever see, one of my thought was, I think it's a Marilyn Monroe that says, sometimes good things fall apart so that better things can come together.
I like that.
The reality of that is this: after shutting down the clinic, at least 3 staff members stayed working with me without pay for a full year. So it spoke to who I was. It spoke to me living my purpose. It spoke to the impact that I had in their lives. Even when I relaunched my current business, every time I've had a workshop of some sort, something, I would tap into them. At no point do they've always showed up and always said no to me offering them payment for their service. So for me, this speaks volume to who I was, where I was in my life, and in my existence, in my connection with myself, because I was clear that that was my greatest purpose in this life. So
Well,
that's my story, and a lot of different elements, some of the elements of my story.
yeah, no, it's a wonderful story. And also the fact of being prepared for the journey. And that's where the challenge comes in. People don't either, they don't expect things to ever go wrong. And we should know by now, in the world that we live in, it's just a matter of time. We don't know when and necessarily how, but something will derail you or will try to derail you at some point or another. So we shouldn't seem it as strange or unusual, right? But we tend to. So I would like to know, how are you able to develop that mental fortitude to, when the challenges were coming your way, to be able to embrace it, as you said? Where did all of that kind of resilience come into play? How did you were able to summon it, as opposed to some people would maybe fall apart or like, oh no, what's going on, I don't know what's happening, versus being more structured about approaching it?
I believe it's this mindset shift that's needed to be able to go through that life and experiencing challenges, and with the way in which I was able to do it. And what I mean by that is that with the process of, because I had already shifted my mindset years ago in terms of connecting with who I was, understanding, taking the time to process what life was about, or purpose in this planet, why we're created, and what's expected of us, not from the highest entity, for the highest power. Taking that time to reflect and evaluate and process that has prepared me to be able to step into each of these stages of life the way in which I was able to step into it. So it's really it's having this mindset shift and taking the time to realize, okay, I need to pull away from whatever's going on in my circle right now, whatever I'm dealing with at this moment, whatever stage I am or season I am in my life. I need to take a step back, make a decision to pay attention to what's being generated, process what's being generated, release that which doesn't serve us anymore, and take action towards refining the way in which we want to start moving forward. And the refinement leads you to the mindset shift fully, so that you can take the time to journal or process things as they come, get understanding as to who you are in different stages of your existence. We know our DNA. We know where we come from, but what we don't know is who we are from within. What makes you happy? What makes you upset? What triggers you? What brings you to the moment of, like, from happiness to sadness quickly, from being totally upset to being totally happy? What are those little nuances that are being generated that's causing these things? It causes you to get connected and get intimate with your values, understanding the values that you carry. Not only it helps you understand you, but it also helps you understand others. Get a better understanding as to why people do what they do. Why does this mean so much to me, but it doesn't mean so much to Emily? Well, values may be different. So the way in which Emily processes something, that's not how I process it. It doesn't mean one is right, one is wrong. It just is. And being okay with that. Because your experiences are not my experiences. So we value things differently. It takes you to that. It's really going through that process and getting the clarity in these stages, and realizing, okay, this is what life is really about. This is what I was meant to be doing, what I'm doing. This is why I tap into what I tap into. This is why I'm pursuing what I'm pursuing. And all along, staying aligned with that which makes you unique.
And you know, Rachelle, with what you're saying, it's the foundation is paying attention, as you said up front, paying attention and being aware of your own self. And I want to kind of cycle back a little bit to something you said earlier about when you were thinking of what profession to pursue, and you were sharing with your parents, and you said you had to make the case for what you ultimately wanted. And actually that's a good thing, because I think our parents also want to make sure we know what we want. And so they may challenge you a bit to make sure. I mean, they may have their expectations of you. And as you said, we have these cultural backgrounds. My family's from Jamaica, so I totally understand the Caribbean influence and outlook. And so they have they want the best for their children, but you have to have a vision for yourself ultimately. And it's important to not be able to say, well, because of where I come from or because of how I grew up, I couldn't make that choice. Because ultimately we can. And you're here to share just that fact. So in the whole idea of cultivating the ability to pay attention, what are some of the steps, or as you highlighted, nuances that enable us to be more aware of and be more in tune with what's really important to ourselves?
So one of the key elements is it's, you first you want to reveal who you are to you. And in revealing who you are to you is really the process of listening. It's a process of connecting. It's a process of evaluating what's being generated within. So it's really that's how you become in tune with you. You have to listen to what's being generated. That's the first thing. Listening to what's being generated. Make sense of what's being generated, which allows you to process it. And connect with what's being generated. And that listening requires you to be having quiet time with you. Releasing requires you to journal or speak on it or record it. And that's how you become connected to it. Because now it starts making sense. So that when these same things you have identified shows up, you have a point of reference. You have something else to go back to reflect upon and said, oh, when this happened, I did this. When this happened, I did that too, which means there's a connection to. There's something there that I connect with that keeps on bringing me back there. So we need to pay attention to what that is. And as things being revealed to us, we process it. And we start releasing what that which no longer serves us. And keeping what we feel that makes us the best version of ourselves.
So we have a question with that, Rachelle. We're being asked here on Facebook. It says, was there ever a time when you felt like journaling did not make sense?
Journaling?
Yes, specifically about journaling.
I think that journaling is a process that, depending on the person, it can make sense, it cannot make sense. It's a couple of things. It depends on where you are in your journey. And second, who you are as an individual. Going back to understanding who you. For some, journaling is like the best thing. Others are not writers, so journaling is not the thing they want to do. They can't be bothered. Mm-hmm. Some of them can require recording it. Some people just want to put notes on their phone. Whatever works for you. The process that most people tend to suggest is journaling because it gives you back a point of reference. However, you could find different ways to journal without necessarily having to write it. It could be something that's recorded, like I just mentioned, for you, or it could just be a question of note taking where, let's say, just specific words that represent certain things for you. And then you keep that as a point of reference for you. So that when let's say, if Joe shows up for you, you know this was Joe. So when I feel this way, I'm gonna call this feeling Joe. I'm gonna call this feeling Aaron. I'm gonna call this other thing Jasmine, however way. So that even if you're not journaling it, you could say Joe showed up, that was a specific behavior of Joe. That was a specific thought of Jasmine or Aaron. So you know how many times any of these things pops up for you. And as they show up, then you know, how did you feel when they showed up? What was being generated for you when Joe or Jasmine or Aaron were showing up? Which one did resonated with you the most? What version of you do you like the best? Was it when Joe showed up? Was it when Jasmine showed up? Was it when Aaron showed up?
And you know what? Yeah, and you know what, Rachel, too? It's also, what is also the voice you're quieting? So the one that maybe is talking to you, but you just, nah, it's not gonna, never mind. The one you yeah. And why?
And why. So when it shows up, what's being generated, why it's being generated, and how do you feel about what's being generated? So then you start building a relationship with that which is being generated within yourself. And you know what's being brought up, and when it's coming, again, it's a matter of finding the best feeling out of all that, so that you're continuously at that level. Now, you and I know it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and we're human beings. Therefore, it continues to show up in our lives. No matter how awakened you may be, it shows up. The difference of a person who's awake is that we have the tools to tap into, so that when the energy that's no longer, that are not serving to us, show up, we know how to go back and shift it back. A person who has not done the work may not have the tools in their bag to pull from, so that when this is coming up for them, whatever the energy may be, they don't know how to pulling it. And the other difference is that a person who's awakened, the difference with that person and a person who isn't is because we know how to not remain there too long. It's how long we sit in it. Because the energy comes in by, we get that phone call, the person pissed you off, the person just pissed you off. I mean, you're all human being, it generates something. But when it generates, how long do I sit in it?
Yeah.
I mean, foster, does it take a day? Does it take a month? Does it take a minute? Does it take a week? Does it take a second? What do we have in place to help us release what's being generated for us at the moment that's not serving to us? Is it walking? Is it making a phone call? Is it breathing? Is it meditating? What is it? And whatever that thing is, we tap into it to help us get back to where we were, and that being that space, being the best version of ourselves.
And yeah, and the thing about it, it's a cycle. It's not static. And just like we're talking about energy cycles around. Like, if something isn't working, plug it out and then put it back in, because then it will recharge. So our emotions and feelings or what have you work in a similar way, right? And what you're pretty much saying is that being in tuned to those shifts, that when it's happening. And one more point I'd like to highlight about the journaling that I think I've experienced with that. And as you say, it's different for different people. But whatever it is that allows you to, sometimes when you write something and you read it, you're like, really? That's really what I experienced, or really what I felt? Whereas your conscious mind would not even think of it that way. But it's like, I'm reading a book right now. It's called Atomic Habits, and I've been sharing that with people. If you read that book, Rachelle?
I'm reading it too.
I'm reading it. It's an awesome book. And there's a point I just read. It said, with the train system in Japan and also in New York City, they have this thing called pointing and calling, where you say, well, we are leaving the station. We just closed the door. We just did that. And these things that seem very basic that you would automatically do, but by just taking the time to address it, you reduce mistakes, you increase your mindfulness and awareness, and suggesting how we can do that ourselves. What are we calling out? And physically, whether you write it out or record it, as you say. So it's just increasing that awareness level.
And that's all we can ask of ourselves. And I think this is where the piece of grace comes in, because I think that most of us who decide or are trying to get to a space where we're in that journey and that path, we don't have, again, the tools in place to help understand as to how to process this and one certain thing, instant gratification, and not realizing it's a journey, it's a process. So we need to give ourselves grace and that. And we will have shortcomings, and it's okay. We need to learn to be more gracious with ourselves, more patient with ourselves, more loving with ourselves, more caring, more understanding, not so hard on ourselves sometimes. And understanding it's a process. And that's the best, like, for me, that's the biggest advice I could give to anyone. It doesn't happen overnight, so that when you are going through something and you realize, like, I should have been able, I should have done this. Well, you didn't do it, and you were not able, but it's okay. It's okay, because it is a process, and you are a human being, so things do happen. And not be so hard on us because we have this vision or this thought or this view of how things should be, or we were told how things should be. Life happens. It happens. And we will have shortcomings, and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it really is takes time to adjust all these things. And so as you tap into the whole idea of the power of self-discovery, walk through where the power is coming from, what makes it powerful, and as you go on this journey, how should you feel as you continue to go through this process?
The first thought is to believe that you are powerful on your own. You are
Believe that you're powerful.
Yes, you are powerful. And your power resides within you. And it does. And you haven't seen it yet is because you have yet connected with it. And you don't know how to tap into it. We find ourselves often asking questions outside of ourselves when the answer we're seeking resides within us. Again, it's knowing how to tap into that. The other piece is believing not only in yourself, but believing in something greater than you. We're not here by accident. We are all put in this planet with purpose. Often you hear people say, I need to find. You're not finding purpose. You're connecting with your purpose. And it requires you to dig deep within. Your purpose is inside of you. You are brought into this life with a purpose. The process is to learn to connect with it. And trusting what's being generated from within. Trusting it. Learn to process these feelings, these thoughts, so that you understand what's really being generated within you with clarity. This is again where the journaling piece comes in. If you felt a certain way today, if you indeed put it on paper or you spoke on a voice message, when you go back, this is what I was thinking at the time. Because every day a different version of you is being born. The more you learn, the more you grow, the more you become. And as you're becoming, who you were yesterday no longer exists.
What does that mean, Rachelle? What does it mean, the version I was just, what does that mean?
The person you were yesterday is a less educated, less informed, less aware, less awakened person. Because you didn't have the tools, you didn't have the experience at the time. It took that experience for you to learn from it, to grow from it. Therefore, you're becoming somebody else. You will learn from and it's really basic. A child who gets up and falls, who's trying to walk, but after the second or third fall, they don't like the idea of falling. Their behind hurts or something hurts, they want to stand. And then once they finally stand, they'll try not to do what they did before. However, it doesn't mean that we will not have stumbles. How many times us as adults, we still fall and break a leg? But we have a better understanding how to ease our way down to the fall. That's the difference. It's getting the tools in place, the element in place to help us navigate this thing called life. more refined, and with more tools in our bags.
So here, when you talk about the tools, so some of the tools you were saying is that the process that you go through and being able to maneuver through the process. So when you were mentioning about the part about releasing, I think that is where most people get very stuck. How do you truly release something that you're clinging to or that's causing some kind of obstruction?
Well, releasing is it's everything is a process. Releasing is realizing that, okay, I'll give you an example. Every time I'm around, and I don't want to use you, let me see, every time I'm around Joe, Joe really gives me this, like, I get the feeling inside me gets very tight every time. And every time I'm around Joe, I love Joe, but every time I'm around Joe, the conversation seems so depleting. It's like Joe sees the glass half empty, and I see the glass half full. But every time I engage in conversation, I get out of the conversation like, whew, that was work. So how do I release Joe from my space because it's stumping my growth? Because I'm not growing from Joe. I'm just existing around Joe, but I want to grow. So I need to learn how to release Joe in a way that is still what I still preserve me and honor me. Because the energy that's being generated every time I use Joe, I always find myself either depressed, disconnected, and I feel like it's like, whoa, I feel like fully drained. And it's not a feeling that's serving to me.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I want to serve me because I'm honoring me first. I'm putting me first. I don't want to feel this way anymore. So I need to learn to release Joe or release the sentiment that I get, the sensation I get when I am around Joe, so that I don't feel depleted and I don't feel drained because that feeling is not serving to me.
But how do you do that? That's my question, because it's like there are people like that, obviously, and you can't change them, but they have this impact on you. So, and sometimes it could be a family member, not someone you can actually get away from. So it's not like just walk away. Maybe not so simple. So how do you do that?
And that's where boundaries come in. This is where we learn the power of saying no and understanding no is a full sentence and being okay to say no. It's all about how we say no. And also coming to the space of understanding that as human beings, we learn, we adjust. So often the reason why we don't take decisions to do things differently is because we're assuming it's going to impact the person or the group or the community negatively. So who we are doesn't allow us to make such decisions, and not realizing that even if I make it, they will be okay. I just have to learn to love this loved one from a distance and creating the boundaries necessary that I still am available to them, but yet it's not depleting me to the extent. So you manage expectations, you manage your time, you create the boundaries necessary, and that's important to do with your loved one too. Then at that moment, they can't say, oh my God, I haven't seen you. Yes, you saw me because I created the time for you to see me. Maybe you didn't see me to the extent of the hours you would like to see me, but I haven't given you the time that I was able to provide for that experience. And people will not like it at first. They may even resent the fact that you are in that process. It's up to us to get connected with us fully and understanding that our decision comes up from a genuine place of love, but love of self first.
Mm.
And it's not a malicious act. It's a genuine act of kindness to self and love. And then because we're doing that from that space, eventually those who love us unconditionally will adjust. And once they realize it was never done maliciously. So they have to learn to accept who you are from where you're at and give you the space to grow. And remember, we all grow at different pace. I think it's TD Jake that says there are those who feed us and those who deplete us. And as a, so he's right when he says that, because we have to be able to understand that not everyone in our lives are feeding us intellectually or emotionally or spiritually or environmentally, even physically. They're not always feeding us. So what is important to me? I need to identify it. If being with my loved one is something that I value, going back to values, how do I create the environment to still get that connection that I need, because it's part of making me who I am, because it's part of my value, but yet still manage it in a way it doesn't get to a space of depletion. And it's creating this path. It is possible. It does require help at times because we're not, all equipped to be able to understand these nuances. This is why people like you and I exist, as it relates to different components and where we can actually help others navigate this whole process.
Yeah, and I what is so vital here is that this whole, you get energized, powered by tapping into being true to yourself. And so many times people are doing everything to take you away from your true you. It's like a tug of war on your heart, on your heartstrings, on your emotions, on your everything, making you feel guilty. And then you have to say, but wait a minute, I have to look about me. And when you are a better version, I mean, these words sound so cliche, but when you have maximized and you're stepping into your potential, as the whole goal is to do, then you're training people around you. I'm really paraphrasing your point because to really reinforce it, and it's such a powerful one. It really is, because you have to be very vigilant about intruders and invaders into your space, and not only physical space, but mind space and energy space that would then not allow you to fulfill your view of where you need to be. So it's a really critical thing. And if you were to step back and say, how much time have I given to people who do drain my energy or who do not contribute to my goal here? We'd be quite surprised by that, I think, if we were to do that.
Yeah, and then we find ourselves sometimes because as we don't want to hurt others,
Hurt their feelings, yeah.
So we remain in situations and environments and settings and relationships that are not serving us. But yet we don't know how, because we don't want to come across the wrong way. And don't get me wrong, I think all these decisions, all these actions can be taken or expressed in the most respectful way. It doesn't have to be something that's rude and no.
Exactly.
Communication. And especially when it comes to your loved ones, your children, your spouse, your partner, your parents, or whoever, have the conversation. I am engaging, I'm embarking in a journey that may come across different to you. But I would love you to understand I'm trying to work on myself, getting to know who I am so that I can become a greater, I could be, live to my full potential. And in order for me to do that, I need to go through these stages. Please understand. So if you see me not engaged or not going and not participating, or that, it's not personal. It's just I'm on a path. And so that we need to practice what we preach, right? That we were raised a certain way. So maybe before we made that decision, we wouldn't have been able to understand why the next person was doing what they were doing either, right? So now we need to understand that we're not in the same space. We're not in the same growth process, and it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. But we need to be able to communicate it, and so that they understand. And that's what I have been able to do. I have been able to do, because I've been able to communicate with my loved ones, and really for them to understand where I was, what was going on. I don't mean this when I do this. I don't, if you see me do this or not do that, it's not intentional, it's not purposeful, it doesn't mean that I'm trying to hurt, or it's just I am in a process. and I would love for you to understand and support. I said, come, but I will create the time no matter what to be with everybody. It may not be the time you would like, the quantity, but it will be time no matter what. I will make that phone call. It may not be an hour on the phone, but I could give you 10 minutes or 20. I may not call you every day, but I may call you one day. I dedicate, and I have done that. I have certain people in my life where I found that, okay, I love them so much. I realize I have to create the time for them in that way. And they're draining, but I love them. So once a week, I know I have to tap in with that one person, or that's it, or two, whatever the amount of people, where I will give, that's their time. That's their time.
And set the timer.
Oh, that's it. Because that's it. Because I have other things I need to do and understand. And I have openly just share that. I say, hey, I'm not gonna say because you're draining. I want to say that. I say, hey, you know what? I have to give you your Emily time. So this is Emily time. How are you? What we doing? And we come, we converse and we get into. But that's Emily time. That's it. Yeah. Any other time, it's like I may not have that hour or that 20 minutes or that 30 minutes dedicated to Emily.
Yeah. Yeah.
That way. So that's
so
what this is what we need to create, these little routines for ourselves.
Excellent. So Rachelle, thank you for these wonderful insights. Could you share a little bit about what's behind you, that My Energy poster and all those pretty boxes and all that stuff? How do people, what are those things?
There's a lot of things. So this is My Energy. It's it's a book that I've written. It's on Amazon, also on my website. It's a guided journal to self-discovery and energy shifting, where I introduce a 7-step process to connect you with who you are, and 4 stages of shifting energy at any given time. So this is what this logo is all about. The box there is actually the gift that my clients receive upon registering to my signature program called Reignite Me, where I light up the flame within so that you can get into the space of getting to know who you are and really live the life that you were destined to live with purpose and joy. So that's what this is all about. It's a 12-week program, and also the power session that I have available also, which is where I understand that not many people feel they need those 12 weeks, whatever. And sometimes you need that 1 hour, an hour and a half to just be able to tap into someone to have a quick, boost of energy given to you so that you can continue doing the work you need to do, get the creativity flow going again so that you can tap in. So this is all part of all that I offer. And in a nutshell, that's it.
So where can people find you? What's your website? And we'll make sure to post that also.
Yeah, my website is www.agachesylvain.com. On Instagram, I am _AgachesSylvain. I am also on LinkedIn under Rachelle Sylvain. I also am on Clubhouse under Rachelle Sylvain.
So wait, let me get that straight. Right. Can you just put it in a chat for me?
I will.
And then I can copy it and put it into our Facebook as well. And I'll include it on the blog post.
Yes, I'll definitely do that. So I'm all over social media, and I am accessible.
So what I would encourage people to do, if you're watching this, you have questions, write it in the comments, anything that you would like to ask Rachelle, and even after we're over today, you can maybe go back and look at this and be able to see, we can respond to the comments. Here, let me put it in here. And the R motivation, RO motivation, that's.
Oops, I wrote this.
Okay, so I can do that. And in the meantime, I want to let people know that these videos will also be live, will be on Facebook. They're live on Facebook. Yeah, they're live on Facebook, but they'll be also on YouTube. That's what I'm trying to say. And also be posted in my blog when I put it up after the show. But I really appreciate everyone tuning in and watching it, those who are watching it live and those who get a chance to watch it on the replay, and to really have the opportunity to tap into that power that you have and everything of that sort. And also, if you haven't signed up for the Supercharge weekly newsletter, I encourage you to do that. Just go to on my website and do that with superchargedwithemily.com/sign up to get on the newsletter. And also just to let you know that this week coming up, we have one spot left for the Supercharge Mini Coach, the free coaching session that I'm doing. So if you are interested, let me know. I invite you to be a part of that. And tomorrow morning, we have our Motivation Monday, where we get started with a few minutes to supercharge your week. And I just want to thank Rachelle again for bringing her reignition to our Supercharge Sunday. And you really have shared so many insights of how people can better maximize themselves, Rachelle. And as I always say, I always go back and I listen to these videos because there's always more to pick up when you listen to them again. So we really, and you're coming, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's really great. And you're here in Florida as well, correct? I didn't even say that at the beginning when we started.
I am in South Florida, and I am available. I do a lot of speaking, and then also, actually, I forgot to mention, I do have 6 slots available for the Reignite group session as well. So anyone that has it.
Say that again. You have what available?
I have 6 slots available for the Reignite Me program.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So people can connect with Rachelle and at our Motivation on Facebook. That's a Facebook page. We're getting some nice comments. Someone saying here, awesome. So thanks Pauline for being here. She's enjoyed what you had to share, and I certainly have as well. So thank you so much, Rachelle, and I wish everyone a happy, I guess, Memorial Day weekend. And Rachelle has given us a lot to think about. Get us enjoying this time of reflection. So thank you so much. So everyone, will see you next time on Supercharge Sunday. And in the meantime, stay supercharged. Woo! See you next week, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, I just stopped the Facebook. Yay! Thank you, Rachelle. It was fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you. Really.
Let me stop the recording too.